Can I have a card? Please. Thank you. Jai He Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayo Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Sri Radhe. Jayo Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Sri Radhe. Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grandara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Nasta prayesu vadresu nityam bhavata sevaja bhagavati utamai sloke bhaktir bhavati naistikim. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Yayanudirajet. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 26, The Helix Planets, text number 16. It's a prose, so I'll recite once and then we can do a word by word. Jastvaiha Vairaja Raja Purusho Vadadandya Danda Pranajanti Brahmane Vasarira Dandan Srapapijang Narake Mudra Sukaram Mukhe Nipatati Dadra Tivalar Vinish Piyasya Manas Vajavo Tatraive Heksukanda Artaswarina Swanajam Kwaching Murchita Kasmalan Upagato Jataive Hadrishta Dosauparudaha. And so if anyone would like to read it now, okay, it's very long. So we can do it word by word. If you can repeat after me, please. Yat, anyone who, to, but, iha, in this life, by, indeed, Raya, a king, Raja Purushaha, a kinsman, Ba, or, Andandye, unto one not punishable, Dandam, punishment, Pranajati, inflicts, Brahmane, unto a Brahmana, Va, or, Sarira Dandam, corporal punishment, Saha, that person, king or government officer, Papiyam, the most sinful, Narake, in the hell, Amutra in the next life, Sukaramuke, name Sukaramuka, Nipatati, falls down, Tatra, there, Ativalai, by very strong assistance of Yamaraj, Vanishpisiyamana, being crushed, Avajavaha, the different part of the host of the different parts of whose body, Yatha, like, Eva, certainly, Iha, here, Ikshu Kandam, sugar cane, Artha Swarina, with a pitiable sound, Swanayam, crying, Kwachit, sometimes, Mukchitaha, fainted, Kasmalam, Kasmalan Upagataha, becoming illusionate, Yata, just like Eva, indeed, Iha, here, Adristadosha, who is not at fault, Uparudaha, arrested for punishment. Translation. In his next life, a sinful king or governmental representative who punishes an innocent person or who inflicts corporal punishment upon a Brahmana is taken by the Yamadutas to the hell named Sukaramukha, where the most powerful assistant of Yamaraj crushed him exactly as one crushes sugar cane to squeeze out the juice. The sinful living entity cries very pitifully and faints, just like an innocent man undergoing punishment. This is the result of punishing a faultless person. Text number 17. This text doesn't have purpose, so we will read text number 17 in translation. By the arrangements of the Supreme Lord, the great living beings like bugs and mosquitoes suck the blood of human beings and other animals. Such insignificant creatures are unaware that their bites are painful to the human beings. However, first-class human beings, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, are developed in consciousness, and therefore they know how painful it is to be killed. A human being endowed with knowledge certainly commits sin if he kills or torments insignificant creatures. Who has no discrimination. The Supreme Lord punishes such a man by putting him into the hell known as Andakupa, where he is attacked by all the birds and the beasts, reptiles, mosquitoes, lice, worms, flies, and other creatures he tormented during his life. They attack him from all sides, robbing him of the pleasure of sleep. Unable to rest, he constantly wandered about in the darkness. Thus, in Andakupa, his suffering is just like that of a creature in the lower species. Purport. From this very instructive verse, we learn that lower animals created by the laws of nature to disturb the human beings are not subjected to punishment, because the human being has developed consciousness. However, he cannot do anything against the principles of Varnashram Dharma without being condemned. Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 4:13, Chaturvarnya maya srishta guna karma vibhagataha. According to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. Thus, all men should be divided in four classes: Brahmana, Vaishya, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudras, and they should act according to their ordained regulations. They cannot deviate from their prescribed rules and regulations. One of these states that they should never trouble any animal, even those that disturb human beings. Although a tiger is not sinful if he attacked another animal and eats its flesh, if a man with developed consciousness does so, he must be punished. In other words, a human being who does not use his developed consciousness but instead acts like an animal surely undergoes punishment in many different hells. Nangyanaatimirandasya Gyanangyana salakaya chakchurunmitanjena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukankaroti vachalan fangung dankajate kirin jat kripata mahavande Sri Guduti dinatarinam param ananda vardhanan Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Vanchakalpataruyascha kripa sindhuyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Now, Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Silaham Vapasak Swami iti namine. Well, as we were studying this chapter, especially the hellish planets, it's previous devotees, previous classes, it was emphasized the point for us to understand that actually Bhagavatam is, in this part of the Bhagavatam, in this fifth canto, especially from the chapter 16 to 26, these 10 chapters where is described the structure of the universe, the main purpose is to explain how the living entities are distributed or allocated in different regions of the universe according to their consciousness. So in that way, we now receive information about what is the consciousness of the people who live in specific regions. In this case now, we are studying the consciousness of people who are destined to live in the hellish planets, the consciousness of them. So in that way, we are studying the different type of consciousness. And for us it's very important to understand this point because as in the previous classes we mentioned how Dhruta Prabhu explained the correlation about the evolving of consciousness and the different planetary systems according this consciousness. So knowing where we want to go, so we can organize the development of our consciousness, so we can orientate our activities in order to maintain one state of consciousness appropriate to the place where we want to go. So, and also we understand that the state of consciousness is directly influenced by the modes of nature. We are in this material world because we wanted to independently enjoy from Krishna. That's something that we need to understand, very important point. It's our desire to come here. It's not that Krishna wants us to be here. It's just our desire. And he has to facilitate our desires. For that reason, he created this, the manifestation of this material world. And it's up to us how we develop our consciousness, how we surrender to these modes of nature. In previous texts also we understood, or we learned, that all the creation of this material world is subjected to the influence of the three modes of material nature. We are talking about the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So everything that exists in this material manifestation is under the influence of these modes. Understanding this knowledge is very crucial, because in this way, as a human beings, that we have the capacity to discriminate, to understand, so we can direct our activities to the certain goal. So the knowledge that Bhagavatam and the Vedic knowledge is providing us has that purpose to uplift our consciousness. Now we are talking about the punishment in the hellish planets, and the main topic is punishment, but actually if we understand that we are in this material world, it's kind of punishment. It's another hell compared to what was our place, or what is our original place, the original world, the spiritual world. So being in this material world is just a prison, it's a jail, a hell, where we have to receive the punishment of our activities. So within the prison, there is another prison, a specific one, these hellish planets. No? So it's something that we need also to clearly understand. And this is based, again, in the influence of the modes of material nature. So everybody who is in this material world is influenced on those, with these modes. And but we have the opportunity as a human beings to endeavor to rise our consciousness, at least not to be overcome by the lower modes of nature, means passion and ignorance. Because the natural tendency of the consciousness is to go to degrade. If we do not endeavor to maintain a specific state of consciousness, naturally it will go down. It's like the natural propensity of the water, stream of water, always will be looking for the lower levels. When the rivers are flowing, they go straight to the ocean because it's the lower level. The same, the tendency of the consciousness, if we are not careful, is to degrade to the lower levels. So naturally the modes of passion and ignorance will overcome if we do not consciously endeavor to maintain a proper state of consciousness. So, but our endeavor is not enough. But by attending or try to do it, we will attract the mercy of Krishna to uplift uplift our consciousness, but the endeavor has to be there, and it has to be constant. If we are careless, after some times we will realize that our consciousness will degrade. So in that way, for example, based in this principle, the Bhagavatam is describing how the Krishna arranged a system for correcting that tendency. We can use the word punishment, so-called punishment. But in order just to help the living entity to correct, to rectify and uplift the consciousness. So based on the principle of fear under the modes of nature, for example, for people who are under the influence of mode of ignorance, the fear to go to hell or to be in poverty or disease, that is very painful. No, I don't want to go to hell. But it's mainly about people who are under the influence of the modes of ignorance. But for example, for people who are mostly influenced by the modes of passion, the fear of losing the possessions that they have, or perhaps losing the opportunity to go to a better place, Swargaloka or the heavenly planets, perhaps. So there are some restrictions there or regulations that is prescribed in the Vedas. Or, for example, for people who are more in the modes of goodness, it's a little bit subtle. The motivation to be engaged in activities that uplift their consciousness is based more in the fear not to fulfill their duties, for example. The sense of duty is very strong in people who are in modes of goodness. So fear that I'm not doing my duty, so I'll try to follow the rules and regulations, and in that way I'll maintain or uplift my consciousness. So fear, it's a very important factor in this case that motivates us to engage ourselves in different prescribed activities with the purpose to uplift our consciousness, and all are prescribed in the Vedas. So the Vedas describe a gradual elevation of consciousness and also the quickest one. And in the previous text also, and whole Bhagavatam is giving us tips and guidance how we can quickly uplift our consciousness. And we know what is that? The quickest process? Be engaged in devotional service. Yes, that's right. Bhakti. And this is clearly established by, for example, very soon we will touch this point in 6th canto, when the pastime is the conversation between the Yamadutas and Yamaraj. When the Yamadutas wanted to drag a Jamil, punish a Jamil, and the Vishnudutas stopped them, but Yamadutas, they were surprised. What is happening? Because this person is so sinful, so he has to go to hell. He deserves to go to hell. And in that confusion, the Yamadutas asked Yamaraj, what's happening? Because Dharma is established by the Vedas, no? Dharma, Veda, Pranita. See? That's the way how the Yamadutas ask Yamaraj. And do you remember what is the answer that Yamaraj says? What is the answer? In the previous text, in yesterday class, if I'm not wrong, Prabhupada established in the purpose that actually the Dharma is established. It says, Dharmas tu saksat Bhagavat Pranita. That is in sixth canto, text, chapter 6, text 12, if I'm not wrong, where Yamaraj established clearly, that it said that actually the dharma, the prescribed dharma for uplifting the consciousness is clearly and directly established by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody else can do it. No the Vedas, no the demigods, no Brahma, no the human beings. So only who established the principles of Dharma is God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna clearly established in the Bhagavad Gita as well that what is the principle of the constitutional position of the living entity. By being engaged in that activity, that he will obtain his original position or regain his constitutional position. That's being engaged in devotional service. So this is very important principle to understand. In that regard, I would like to redirect our discussion today, trying to understand how Krishna established, how caring and especially protective Krishna acts to help us to regain our state of consciousness, to help us to not perishes. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, there is a very important text that describes the mood of Krishna trying to protect his devotees, because as a practicing devotees, we understand that we are still struggling in our conditional state. We are not pure devotees yet. So, because we are still conditioned under the modes of nature, it said that the living entity has 4 defects. Do you remember what are those 4 defects? Being in illusion, yeah. Then the tendency to commit mistakes. The senses are imperfect and the cheating propensity. The idea basically is because we are in illusion and we have limited, our senses have limited perception, so we will have the tendency to commit mistakes, because never will we be perfect in this conditional state. And because of that, we have the tendency to cheat others and ourselves, starting from cheating ourselves, deceiving ourselves. So that is the natural propensity of a conditional living entity, in a conditional state. So then we can expect that we will commit mistakes. And as a practicing devotees, because we are not still in a pure stage of consciousness, so there is no question that if we will fall down or not. The idea is when we will fall down, because our tendency to commit mistakes is there. So in that way, understanding that propensity of us to commit mistakes, or the tendency to make mistakes is there. How we can solve this? Because we are talking about punishment and rectifying the consciousness. So Krishna nicely organized on aspects how these corrective measurements happen, and especially for his devotees. So there is one text in the Bhagavad Gita that describes the mood of Krishna that we mentioned. That is in the chapter 9. Do you remember that special text that Krishna very boldly said, and that can inspire, give us motivation? Yeah, my devotee never perishes. But there is previous text to that, very beautiful text that can give us the confidence that Krishna, in a loving mood, he is always protecting us. Yeah, it's a apichet suduracharo vajante manananyavaks sadur eva sapmantyavya samyak vyavasito hisa. So Krishna very boldly said, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. So this is very important text for us to understand what is the mood actually of Krishna and how it should be our mood as well. Krishna, he is the supreme, perfect living entity, the father of all living entities, and he doesn't deny or punish or regret the living entity. What he's trying to encourage us, even if we commit abominable actions, if we still continue in the practice of our devotion and service, Krishna will help us to regain our consciousness, our proper state of consciousness. There is a hope for us. And not just that, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur Maharaj in the comments of the next text, when Krishna tells Arjuna, declare boldly that my devotee never perishes. It's another attempt of Krishna to show his strong conviction and faith in his devotee. My devotee never perishes. Why? Because I'll be protecting him. I'll protect him. And Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur Maharaj comment in this text saying that the feeling of remorse, the fire of that remorse that the devotee experiences when he commits a mistake, is so strong that burned all the reaction of the sin, of the sinful activities, the remorse that the devotee has. And naturally, the devotee will again be situated in the devotional practice and endeavor to correct that tendency. But we should always remember that the tendency to commit mistake is there. But if we endeavor, Krishna will help us. So if Krishna has that vision towards us, that we are always the tendency to fail, because that it looks like is part. I don't know if you realize, but from my side, I'm completely sure that I have the tendency to commit a lot of mistakes, and it's most probably the most of us. It is kind of the general rule that applies because we are still in the conditional state. But Krishna has that approach, and understanding that point of our conditional state, how we should look to others' mistakes, how we should appreciate or see when another devotee commit mistakes. Can we judge? Can we punish? Can we do something like that? If Krishna, the supreme perfect being, has a vision of loving and protecting the living entity and having the opportunity, giving the opportunity to rectify, and his approach is, even if a devotee commit abominable acts, he should be considered a saint if he remain practicing Krishna consciousness. So many of us, in our endeavor of practicing Krishna consciousness, because of our still no pure state of consciousness, we commit mistakes, but we are still practicing Krishna consciousness. So we should be very careful how we see the mistakes of other devotees as well. And Prabhupada very nicely in the purpose of this text, the Apichet Suracharo, explain why is that tendency to commit mistakes. Because he said that in our conditional state, Prabhupada says that we have the conditional tendency conditional position due to, if we can call that Dharma and Swadharma, our conditional situation and our constitutional situation. As a practicing devotees, we experience this. As a constitutional position, we are trying to be engaged in devotional service and with a nice dedication, but at the same time, because we are still in a conditional state, under the influence of the mode of nature, of the bodily conception of life, so we have some swadharma, so a conditional circumstance. So sometimes it happens that the conditional situation and the constitutional activities of the living entity or the devotee can parallel go, and then that creates a wholesome situation for a devotee. But sometimes the constitutional position and the conditional activities, they don't match, they conflict. In that circumstance is that we have a mistake, we commit mistakes, we do wrong to others and sins. But the main important point is that the devotee understands his conditional state, his situation, and he has the feeling, he repents, he has remorse, and that feeling is a push for a devotee to rectify. And each time he's trying to endeavor, because our conditioning is not from just this lifetime. We have been here for thousands and millions of lifetimes. It's not something that we can eradicate easily. Okay, now I'm chanting Hare Krishna and I'll be perfect from today onwards. Because I'm still having the influence of my luggage from the my previous misdeed, previous life. So even my chanting is not appropriate. Even the execution of my devotional service, it's not in the high level that it should be. So understanding this point, okay, so we have to develop that humility, that submissive also attitude that is important. Because I understand that I'm conditioned, I must be humble. But if we don't remember that we have this luggage, this impediment, and we consider that we are perfect, so pride is blocking us. And that pride also is making us to judge others. But if we always remember that we are full of faults, so naturally humbleness will be there, humility will be there, and we will be also compassionate with others, because we will realize that they also are struggling in the same situation that I am. I have my difficulty. Clearly, Krishna very boldly said that my devotee will never perish. Even if he does or commit a very abominable mistake, but if he remains in devotional service, he should be considered a saint. So very, very important point. And also, it's some past times, how, for example, Bhagavatam, it's full of descriptions of devotees in the process of uplifting their consciousness commit a lot of mistakes, full of faults. It's stories of devotees who commit a lot of faults, a lot of mistakes. But it's not just that. Also, Bhagavatam shows us the prescribed methods how to recover, how to uplift the consciousness, how we can rectify our mistakes. So in that sense, Bhagavatam gives us the proper knowledge, ideal for all of us. For example, it said that Krishna, in his very compassionate, forgiving, and loving mood, he deals with his devotee in different levels. Prabhupada explained that Krishna sees the less the very least quality of his devotee, and he rewarded with the highest reward. He gives the highest reward. That is the standard of the Krishna's character. So compassionate. And he said that, for example, we have the tendency to act, the activity, and also the intention behind the activity. For Krishna, for example, if a devotee do a wrong activity, but his intention is good, Krishna won't see the wrong activity. Krishna will appreciate his good intention behind that. And he will happy with that and help the devotee gradually to rectify the action. But for Krishna means a lot the intention. There are other cases, for example, do you remember any case that devotees, they in a good intention, but they did wrong activity? Ambarish Maharaj? Do you think Ambarish Maharaj was wrong activity and good intention? Good intention. And wrong activity? Ambarish Maharaj? Perhaps from Durvasa point of view? Yeah, can be. Another case, for example, wrong activity, but the intention was good. Bhishma, fighting in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, fighting, but the intention was to please Krishna. And even he was fighting with Krishna, and Krishna was enjoying that. Externally, from the external point of view, we can see Bhishma was doing wrong, but internally Krishna was enjoying the loving exchange with Bhishma Dev. Another wrongdoing, but in good intention could be, for example, when Mother Yasoda was chastising Krishna, trying to chasing him with a stick. But what was the intention behind? In her loving mood, as a motherly, she wanted to correct Krishna. And Krishna was enjoying that pastime too. No? Another example, is described very beautifully in Bhagavatam with the Jai and Vijay. When the Kumaras came to see the lotus feet of the Lord, this Jai Vijay, they did wrong. They kind of offense to the pure devotees. No, you cannot come here. They stopped them, and as we know, the Kumaras, they were very upset and even cursed them. But just in that moment, Krishna, he rushed to come to that point that even Garuda, he said that Garuda was trying to carry the Lord, but the Lord was so desperate that just ran quickly, and Garuda running behind Krishna. And when they arrived, Krishna, this is a pastime beautiful narrated by my godbrother Radhika Raman Prabhu. He said that Krishna, when they arrived, Garuda and Krishna was touching the shoulder of Garuda, and to say, okay, don't worry, Garuda, no? Because Garuda said, please allow me, I can take you. But Krishna was so in a hurry that he couldn't wait, he just ran. And Garuda ran in, and when they arrived, Krishna was touching his shoulder in order to convey the message that, don't worry, we appreciate your service. Everything is fine. We are happy with your service mood. So, but because the Lord was in a hurry, so these two devotees, Jai Vijay, were having difficulties. And Krishna said, my devotee never perish. I have to protect my devotees. So in that way, Krishna apologized to the Kumaras, said, oh, please, my devotees did something wrong to you. I am taking the responsibility of that. But at that point, the Jai Vijay, they said, my Lord, no, we did a mistake. We accept the punishment. No, they acknowledge. It's not like they justify. They acknowledge their mistake and say, okay, we recognize we did wrong. We are willing to receive the punishment. We will do as you said. That was the attitude of the Jai Vijay. And but by seeing the mood of the Lord and the Jai Vijay, the Kumaras, they realized their mistake. They said, wow, we came here to see the Lord. But the Lord said something very important. They said, sorry, my devotees, they offend you. Actually, I'm the responsible of this. So I'll do whatever is needed to rectify that. If you want, you can cut my 2 arms. No problem, because to please you, I'm willing to do that. By the attitude of the Lord and the Jai Vijay, the Kumaras, they realize their mistake and they say, no, my Lord, actually, we did wrong. We chastised your devotees, and now we came to see your lotus feet, but what we are doing, we are cutting your arms, because indirectly, Krishna manifested that Jai Vijay are the 2 arms of his 2 arms, and by cursing them, is that they are cutting the Lord's arm. And because the Kumaras are intelligent people, they realized their mistake and they were apologizing. They were, please forgive me, my Lord, forgive us. But it didn't stop at that point, because Krishna told to Jai Vijay, okay, you will go to material world 3 lifetimes, but I will not leave with you alone. I'll go with you. I'll be also taking 3 times birth only to be with you. Because for a devotee, for Jai Vijay, it was a fear, a very big fear. He said, okay, we will go to material world 3 lifetimes, but we have a request. Do you remember what was the request? What was the request that Jai Vijay asked before going to the material world? That's right. Always remember the Lord. Please allow us always to remember you. And that is actually the biggest fear for a devotee. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in a nice class of this Prabhu, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, he mentioned, for a devotee, the biggest fear is that forget Krishna and be away from devotees' association. There is nothing more like that, nothing more painful like that. And that's a conversation between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya was asking the highest higher level of devotion and service, and also Lord Chaitanya asked, what is the most painful and painful situation, the highest suffering for a devotee? And Ramananda Roy said, apart from being away from devotees, from the Lord and his devotees, I do not know the highest, unbearable, the most unbearable unhappiness than this. That is Ramananda Roy replies. And we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita all the interactions with the devotees. When Lord Chaitanya wanted to go to South India, he didn't want to go with all his devotees, his associates. But they wanted to go with him. And the simple fact to think about the Lord is going, it was very painful for them. He said that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when he saw the Lord going, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fainted. He couldn't tolerate that. The same when Gadadhar Pandit, when Lord Chaitanya was going to Vrindavan, Gadadhar Pandit, as we know, he was very much attached to the Lord, but he took the vow of Kshetra Sannyas. And in Puri, when worshipping the Tata Gopinath deity, and when Lord Chaitanya was going to Vrindavan, he was ready to leave that bout of Chaitras and just to follow Lord Chaitanya. He was on his way behind Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya said, "What are you doing? Come back, go back to you did your bouts. It will be very difficult. What people will say? No, you go back." And with all pain in his heart, with that suffering, Gadadhar Pandit has to go back. And when he saw the Lord Chaitanya going, he again fainted. He fainted. So he couldn't tolerate that. And in one way, in some degrees, devotees, and now we can experience that with the lockdown, for example. Many devotees, they were experiencing in some degree this feeling, not able to come to see the Lordship physically to the temple, or not able to come to do their service. And with so much eagerness, devotees are trying to even be more online classes, trying to find ways how to be in association of devotees, because it's so painful to think about not being in association of devotees. That for a devotee, that is the biggest pain. And he said that how the pain is according to the level of consciousness. Where you are low in ignorance, the pain is more gross, physical, but how much your consciousness is elevated, the subtler the suffering, it's more painful. For a devotee, that the consciousness is pure and elevated, the pain of being in separation of the Lord and his devotees is the highest pain that he can imagine. Physical pain can be tolerated, but the subtler one, that is really more painful. And another example about the Krishna's mood is Krishna not just see the action and intention as we saw before, the wrong action and good intention, but in the case of, for example, when there is good action and wrong intention, Krishna also see the good action and just avoid or doesn't want to see the bad intention. Do you remember any case of good action and no good intention? Any case of that in the Bhagavatam? The classic example is with Putana. Putana has a bad intention. Putana, the bad intention was to kill the Lord, but the good action was to feed the Lord. And Krishna just wanted to see that. And that was so amazingly, beautifully described and appreciated by Uddhava when he was talking with Vidura. And he said, no, who can be more merciful than my Lord, who gave the position of a mother to the demon, a Putana demon, who wanted to kill him. So Krishna sees the good action and not the bad intention. And the same with Ajamil, we will read very soon. Ajamil, the good action was? Yeah, he called out Narayan in the name of the Lord, but his intention was to call the Lord? No, his intention was to call his son. But Krishna just wanted to see the good action. That is another point, how we can see the Krishna, how he sees. Another case is, another level is when, if it's wrong action and wrong intention, if Krishna, how Krishna takes in that case. If a devotee does something wrong and a bad intention, how Krishna will address that? Krishna will forgive? Krishna will do it. Because if the devotee repent, if the devotee said, oh my Lord, please forgive me, I have this bad tendency because of my bad tendency, devotees are ashamed of me probably because my bad tendency, please forgive me, I did this wrong activity. And we have the cases in Bhagavatam. Do you remember any case in Bhagavatam where it was a wrong action and wrong intention? Indra is the perfect example. He wanted to kill the inhabitants of Vrindavan, Krishna's associate, and his intention was that, and he did it, he tried. But Krishna forgave him. Why? Because he repented. And there is a specific process for that. It's not just, oh my Lord, I'm sinful and please forgive me. It's not just that. There is a prescribed method in Bhagavatam, approaching to devotee, and that's how Indra did it, to go to the Lord with Surabhi cow and trying to endeavor and rectify his attitude. He did it. And Krishna forgave him. Krishna forgave him. And there is another case when Krishna doesn't forgive directly. Do you know what is the case? Krishna, he can't forgive, unfortunately. It's the case when we commit offenses to his devotees. Krishna doesn't forgive that. That unfortunately that is the case, and we need to be aware of this. Krishna doesn't forgive if we wrong another devotee, and if we offenses to Vaishnavas. But Krishna helps us how to rectify that. Krishna will address, and do you know what is the solution for that? That's right. The only way how we can be forgiven from our wrongness is to ask forgiveness to the devotee. But Krishna will guide us how we can ask forgiveness to the devotees, and then Krishna will forgive us. Only in that way. Krishna also intervenes in that way. And the classic example is Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj. Durvasa Muni, for example, his attitude was quite interesting. When he cursed Ambarish Maharaj and he was trying to chastise him, and because he thought he was right, as Priya Mataji said, he thought that he was doing, Ambarish Maharaj was wrong, and he punished or tried to punish him. From his point of view, he did it. He thought, but when he saw the Sudarshan Chakra coming to kill him, he was running to look for shelter. And he went to Lord Shiva, Lord Rama to ask for shelter, for help. And what they said, no, we cannot do it. No? But Durvasa Muni said, why? I'm a Muni and I'm a sage. I have the power to do it. It's my position. Sometimes we have that tendency, when we do some wrong to some devotees, we try to justify our activity, our attitude, our action, looking for shelter. We talk to others, trying to just justify our attitude, and we don't recognize our mistakes. So it's the same like Durvasa was doing it. He didn't go to Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma saying, I'm sorry, I did wrong, please help me. No, he was just looking for shelter because Sudarshan Chakra was chasing him, but in his mind was still the consciousness, no, I did wrong, I deserve protection. And even with that attitude, he went to Vishnu, to Krishna, and Krishna guided him what is the only solution. And then he realized his mistakes. And he went and received the solution for his difficulties. This is an example, this is just a brief touching about the mood of Krishna, how he organized, how he deals with his devotees. can be a motivation for all of us, the confidence that Krishna will help us and inspiring us for endeavoring more in reaching or trying to maintain a proper state of consciousness. Yes, we commit mistakes, we have that tendency, but if we endeavor with sincerity, with humility, requesting help to the Lord, naturally, gradually, we will elevate our consciousness and we will receive the help of Krishna, and that also help each other. Help each other is more important in that way. So I stop in these points. So any comment, any questions? Yes, Mataji? Yeah.
Is that true for all ages as well, like Satya Yuga, and also, like, does it depend upon the association around us and that sort of thing?
Well, the question is, we mentioned that the natural tendency of the consciousness is to degrade, to go down. And is that true in the case of Satya Yuga or the association that we have? That is the question? Yeah. Yes. Well, as we mentioned, the natural tendency when we are careless, that is very important. When we are careless, the natural tendency of the consciousness is degraded. Why? Because the influence of modes of nature on us. And that will go down because the influence of the lower modes of nature. And in the Bhagavad Gita, in the text, I think it's chapter 16, text 19, or text where is described the three gates to hell. Yeah, Trividan, Narakas, Svedan, Dwaran, the gate, Dwaran Nasanan, Atmanaha, Kama, Krodha, Tata, Lova, and then is what is Kama, Krodha, Tata, Lova, Tata, Tasmat et Trajan Tyagjet. So these three gates, the three gates of the three modes of nature, when we are under the influence of these three modes, especially the lower modes of nature, passion in ignorance, the three gates to the health, it's open to us. No, the Dwara, three gates, Lova, Krodha, and Kama, Krodha, and Lova. And that will drag us naturally because the modes of nature influence there. So for that reason, we have to be very careful and renounce even those. Be very careful. When we are careless, that is the tendency. But for maintain our state of consciousness, we need to endeavor a bit, not just a bit. So sometimes we struggle. But in that way, by endeavoring, we attract the influence or the mercy of devotees and Krishna. And you mentioned about the association. Yes, we endeavor to stay in an association of devotees, then we receive the benefit of that, the protection, to maintain and uplift our consciousness. But if we don't remain, or if we do not endeavor in being in a good association, so the tendency is to the consciousness to degrade. So we need to understand that principle. It's not just, okay, I won't do anything wrong, I just stay aloof from devotees and I'll be okay. No, doesn't happen like that. Because times will come and you didn't even notice and you remain away from devotees association, from the spiritual practice, because again the most of nature has influence of us. and what to say. If you are not in association of devotees, so you will be in association of non-devotees. Yeah? And that environment, those things, it's influence of us. Yeah, it has a lot of influence on us. Well, that is my humble attempt to answer your question, Mataji. I hope it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, another question, yes.
So when a person advances the progress for someone in mode of ignorance, for him to come to bhakti, it's to pattern, goodness, and then to higher modes like that, or can he come straight to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Vedas describe the different methods for uplifting the consciousness, the gradual process and the quickest one, as we said. Yes, for the Varnashram Dharma, for example, is another way to uplift the consciousness, the rules, following the rules and regulations according to your Varna and Ashram, that gradually will take you to the highest level of consciousness. But we also know that there is a prescribed injunction from the Vedas of Bhakti Yoga, the chanting the holy name of the Lord, association of devotees, and this process accelerates the uplifting of consciousness. It just is very quickly. We don't have to go in that gradual process that it can take lives and lifetimes. But by endeavoring in being engaged in devotional service, in good association of devotees, and practicing the prescribed process, like chanting the holy name of the Lord, listening or reading Bhagavatam, Krishna, deity worship, association of devotees. So we have the Panchanga Bhakti, yeah? Being deity worship, chanting the holy name, being an association of devotees, reading, studying Bhagavatam, living in the holy Dham, and deity worship. Yeah, the 5 angas that can facilitate, accelerate our uplifting of consciousness. Yeah, and can be the success in just one lifetime. That's very important to know. Okay, if there is no any more questions, comments, any question, Prabhu?
In this Vaishnava Aparada, similar incident with Jagai and Madhu hitting Nityananda Prabhu.
Yeah, that's right. Another pastime, no? Vaishnava Parada and Jagai and Madhu, and by asking for forgiveness and the mercy of a devotee, they can be uplifted quickly, and we know that Jagai and Madhu they become saints. And right, even now there is a God where people go and receive, asking blessings from Jagai and Madhu, no? As saints. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the comment. Grantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Hare Bo.